My name's Peter Schmideg. I'm a retired advertising person and management consultant. And in this program, we're going to be talking a lot about understanding career change, motivation, managing fear, going all in order to be successful, and planning for a better, more successful life and making some good decisions along the way.
Welcome to yet another exciting and remarkable episode of the Online Prosperity Show. And this is your premier destination for exclusive insights into the journeys of remarkable individuals. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today we have a special guest whose multifaceted career is sure to inspire and entertain you. Now, Peter, how are you doing today?
Prosper, hello, great to be here. Thank you for inviting me on your program. It's terrific.
Absolutely. Well, I am the one that needs to appreciate you because we've pulled you out of retirement. And for the next 45 minutes, you are going to be helping us, navigate this world that you once walked in. So I'm really excited for what we are about to uncover today.
Happy to help in any way I can and happy to answer any of your questions. So thank you.
Absolutely. Now, for those that are watching, I want you to imagine starting your career in advertising. Obviously, you're compelling, messages that people are watching, reading, and learning, and then transition to a management consulting role where you're now guiding business to success. Now, this is exactly what our guest, PeterSchmideg, has done. And he's also the co-author of Inside Out, Life's Great Possibilities. And it's a book that dives into embracing change and seizing opportunities. Now, Peter's journey began in Hungary, and he has since made significant strides in Melbourne's professional landscape. And his story is just a testament to the power of adaptability and passion in one's career. So in today's episode, we're going to be exploring Peter's early days in advertising, his bold move into management consulting, the lessons that he learned along the way, and we're also going to be looking at his own personal experiences, obviously the challenges he faced, the wisdom he is now sharing from his retirement days and what it is that has impacted his journey, from the time that he started. So stay tuned as we uncover the invisible threads that actually connect Peter's past to his present endeavors, which is, helping others be, do, and have a happier existence. Now, Peter, I could go on and talk about things that I'm not even qualified for. Tell us, how's retirement?
Oh, look, I've only just retired. I've been retired for a couple of months now. So it's probably, 8-9 weeks. So it's very early days. But so many people ask me, people seem to be fascinated with retirement. It's as if I'm the first person on the planet to have retired. But it is interesting. What I have noticed, Prosper, is that the biggest change is when you're working, and you'll be noticing this as well, or anyone who's watching this who is in the world of work and employment, what have you, whether they're running their own business or employed somewhere, is that you're constantly thinking about work. You're constantly thinking about agendas, programs, timetables, calendar invites, things to pick up, things to do. And once you retire, that whole thing just disappears. And I found it very strange to wake up to looking at an empty calendar. I don't have all those bookings. I don't have all those meetings. I don't have to worry about getting things printed up. I don't have those 5 Zoom calls later this week that I would normally be having. So it's interesting noticing this absence of all this stuff, but in a really good way. It's like this weight, this burden of responsibility is being lifted. So for that one reason alone, retirement is awesome.
Absolutely. Oh, well, for some of us, we actually can't wait to see what that day actually looks like. Because if I would wake up and there's no Zoom call lined up for me, I think that would be that would be a perfect day. But have you settled into some sort of a routine, or are you still grappling with the fact that, oh, I need to be doing something?
Look, my routine at the moment is no routine. I'm enjoying, after living a very timetabled existence of turning up, showing up, being there, getting on and off planes, traveling, all things like that. It's just nice not doing that. So I'm prioritizing things like exercise, prioritizing my health. Might be doing some travel. I'm currently exploring the work of doing some volunteer work in various areas. Some schools are looking for tutors, and RSL, interestingly, is looking for people who can help returned soldiers come back into the workforce. So with things like resumes, interview techniques, and things like that. So I might be spending quite a few hours a week over the next few months with volunteer work as well. So I want to have some things to do, but not too many. So volunteering is going to be a big part of what I'll be doing.
Absolutely. And I think if you're doing something for other people, it also just really gives you some sort of satisfaction of, being a human. Now, you've had a diverse career. Okay. You started off in advertising and hence the flying in and out. You're talking about traveling all those places. You've lived in London for a bit and now obviously Melbourne, Australia. And then you left all that and moved into management consulting. What sparked that interest into first of all advertising?
Um, Well, I don't know if it was an interest in advertising. It was just sort of desperation, I suppose. I'd finished university and I was looking for a job, and I was reasonably unsuccessful finding jobs. And I was walking down the street here in Melbourne in St Kilda Road, which is quite a busy boulevard. And I noticed a sign out the front which was for an advertising agency back in the day. So I just walked inside and I said, do you need anyone? And the person I spoke to was called a creative director, which was a term I'd be familiar with much later on. The creative director said, well, do you know anything about advertising? I said, no, nothing, but I am a little bit curious. So he gave me a brief to work on, and he said to me, what area of advertising would you like to work in? And I saw a whole lot of guys walking around in t-shirts and jeans, and guys and girls, t-shirts, jeans, etc. And I said, oh, the people in casual gear, that's what I want to do. I don't want to wear a suit. They said, oh, well, that's the creative side. I said, okay, the creative side sounds good. What do I do? So he gave me a brief, and I had to create a whole series of ads for a camera. So a press ad, TV commercial, radio commercial, a poster, and do something creative about myself. And I had a week to do it. And he said, bring this back in a week, we'll talk about it. So that's a couple long story short. I took it back to him. He really loved what I had and offered me an unpaid internship. And he said, look, there's something there. There's a diamond in the rough. But so he took me under his wing as a mentor, which is very kind of him. And I got to know him very well over the years, obviously. And his name was Rod. And he very kindly took me on to TV shoots, how to record radio commercials, meeting art directors, designers, graphic designers, how post-production works for a TV commercial. How do you compose an ad? How do you create a magazine ad, direct mail? So I just learned all the basics over about a month or 6 weeks there. I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of my own research, and then knocked on a few doors with my folio that I built up of ads that weren't used. And I found my first job, and that was really the start of a career that lasted another 17, 18 years. But it was really quite accidental. Really, talk about sliding door moments. It was literally this randomly walking to an advertising agency off the street and just seeing what could happen. And that one moment literally changed my life.
Absolutely. So many people are presented with opportunities like that. And because they come dressed in overalls, a lot of people wouldn't take them. Like nobody would have wanted that unpaid internship because you were looking for a job. The last thing you needed was to show up in a space like that and, not be paid for it. But I can only see the allure of an advertising agency because you're working on interesting projects. You get to see them on TV, you get to hear your jingles on radio, and it's got real
Yeah.
life impact, which really keeps things sort of interesting. And yeah, what were some of the biggest highlights during that advertising 17 years that you were on?
Well, oh, look, gee, I did lots of TV commercials. I did a lot of work in the movie industry. End up designing movie posters, cutting movie trailers, doing TV commercials for, I don't know, Heinz Soup and Gillette razor blades. And look, it's just fun. There's a lot of creativity obviously involved. It's sort of creativity on demand. One of the account managers at the agency might come into your office and say, Peter, the client's coming in at 3 o'clock this afternoon. I need 2 radio commercials and a press ad for these new, I don't know, Bridgestone tires. I said, oh, okay, leave it with me. And that afternoon, you've got to have some ideas ready to go within a few hours. Someone is coming to evaluate those ideas. So it's a business. Advertising is a business where you can run, but you can't hide. Your capability is always visible. People will know very quickly whether you can or can't do it. How can you handle the creative pressure? Can you come up with ideas on demand quickly? Can you present those ideas? Can you sell those ideas to clients? So I love the creativity. I love the energy, meeting clients. As I said, going off to shoots and going interstate, overseas to film things. So it's in inverted commas, glamorous, I suppose. And when you see TV shows in Australia like Gruen Transfer, or on Netflix, the series Mad Men, which looks at advertising, a whole series about advertising, it's a really interesting world to be in. And I loved my 17 years in that business. It was just fun. You could work your own hours to an extent. And it was a business where you were allowed a lot of flexibility at the time. So I could say to my manager, I'm working on these. This is back long before working from home became a thing. I could say to my manager, look, that brief I'm working on, I'm just going to stay home this morning and work on it. And I'll come into the office this afternoon. They go, yeah, sure, no problem. As long as you deliver what is supposed to be delivered, as long as you met the brief, you had a lot of latitude to do what you want when you wanted to do it. So it was just wonderful level of freedom.
Absolutely, I like that. And also, hats off to you for the kind of brands that you ended up working in. I mean, Heinz Soup, maybe it's because of you they ended up developing all those 56 different variations because the ads were so good. They're like, let's keep doing it. Let's keep doing it.
I wish I could take credit for that. Yeah.
Absolutely. But you transition from obviously this high-flying advertising career to management consulting.
Yeah.
And that was a significant shift. Can you maybe walk us through, first of all,
Sure.
what motivated you to make this change and how did you navigate the challenges that came along with it?
Sure. And absolutely, there were a lot of challenges. One of these things in hindsight, it looks sort of, if you live your life in hindsight, it sort of makes sense looking back. But when you're actually in it, it's a little bit chaotic and a little bit stressful. So it was chaotic and stressful at the time. I was getting a little bit bored with advertising after 16, 17 years. I said I loved it. I have no regrets and I love the industry. I love the business. It was great. But I didn't want to be the older copywriter. I was a copywriter in the creative side. I didn't want to be the older guy in the room. Advertising is very much a young person's profession. And by young, I mean under 30. Once you're in your mid to late 30s, 40, you're already, oh, a bit like being a tennis player or a sporting star, you're already over that kind of professional hump. And you're either running your own business or consulting for other people, or you open up your own agency. But there's plenty of other younger people snapping at your heels. But so I didn't want to be the older person, so I was looking for something else. And a friend of mine who does a lot of management consulting and training in the US, who I used to go to school with here in Australia, said, look, you might want to try doing what I'm doing, which is training leaders, training managers. And he said, come over to the US, see what I do. So I went to the US for a month and worked with him and just got an idea of the work, a bit like having a preview of a future career. And I really liked it. And he let me do a few things, just, it was a little bit scary. I came back, did some more study in that area, got some more qualifications, got a Cert 4 in training, learning and development, training and assessment. I did a grad dip at Swinburne University in leadership and organizational dynamics. So I did some more hardcore training. I put the hours and time and effort into it. And the hard part was I had two sets of business cards still. I had on the one hand, I had my advertising business cards, but then I had all my training and facilitation business cards. And I'd meet someone on a plane and, you have a chat with someone on a plane sitting next to you and they say, so what do you do? And I always had to think, which card do I give them? Am I the training guy or the management consulting guy? So for a while, it was a little bit confusing, a little bit stressful. I wasn't really sure what I was doing because I was doing a bit of both, a bit like trying to ride two horses at the same time. It wasn't until I fully committed to the learning and development and training and management consulting, where I went sort of all in, I suppose, for that I actually started becoming a lot more successful. I had to just really solidly acknowledge I'm no longer the advertising person. That was a different me. That was a different career, and start new. The interesting thing, though, Prosper, was that some of the advertising clients I had, I could then convert them to training clients. So I could say to them, look, forget Peter, the advertising guy who's writing those ads and headlines and radio commercials for you. I'm now the training, learning, development guy. Here's some of the work I can do. Here's what I can offer you. Here's how I can improve your business and management. And they said, well, let's give it a go. So that's how I really got a head start. I already had an inbuilt group of clients that were willing to continue to work with me in a completely different career. So very lucky in that respect, but it was stressful. I mean, my income went from here, just sort of had a huge dive for about a year. And my wife was very kind and very supportive. She was working, but I spent in that transition year, my income probably more than halved. So imagine getting a 50% pay cut this week and knowing that that pay cut is going to be there for the next 12 months. And how do you manage? How do you live? What do you do? But sometimes you have to sort of go slowly to go a little bit faster, or sacrifice a few things in the short term to win a little bit later on. So if I was obsessed with earning more money or earning income at the level I was when I was in advertising, I would never have gotten into the training, because as I said, I had an income nosedive in a big way, and it was hard for at least a year or more. But after that, things started to pick up and grow, and that continued for another 20 to 30 years beyond that.
Absolutely.
So exciting ride.
It sure is. And thank you so much because there's three things in that. First of all, you went in and immersed yourself in America so you could learn and have first-hand knowledge of what's actually happening. And it's sort of now becoming a trend of who you've become, because the first time in advertising, you went and immersed yourself again, which basically meant you were in the thick of things. All right. And then from there, there's the commitment of going all in, because once you saw how advertising could be a different way of life for you, you committed for the 17 years. And especially now with this management consulting, you went all in. Like you said, you had that, you didn't know which business card to give. And that whole commitment is very, very important for a lot of people who just dabble in certain things just because nobody has given them an opportunity. But the most important thing there is the humility of accepting a lower paycheck, knowing it's going to catapult you into greater positions in life. I mean, so many people wouldn't dare to do that to themselves because of the world we live in today, because of all instant gratification and things of that nature. Now, my question to you is, had you been living in the world we live in right now, would that have been possible? Because you wouldn't have traveled to America. You'd have just done a Zoom call. You wouldn't have maybe humbled yourself by taking a paycheck. You would have created it into a side hustle, and you wouldn't have really immersed yourself into this role. You could have just watched it on YouTube.
Look, it's an interesting point you raised, Prosper. Look, it's funny just talking to you about it because I don't often talk about myself and what I've done. So it's interesting sort of examining this and having you offer some other insights into it. Look, I don't think I would have changed anything. I think people will always struggle with career change. People always struggle with, has my career leveled out? Has it flatlined? Some people say to me, I've been in this job for 12 years. And I'll say to them, is it 1 year repeated 12 times? Or is it 12 years of growth and change? And I think in order for you to create that change, that personal change, and be motivated enough to create a difference in your life, I think you've got to go all in and not just watch the YouTube videos, as you're saying, or what have you, think, oh, that might be good enough, or use some cheat notes. I think you've got to really commit to something, because I think you've got to demonstrate to yourself that you are serious about this and you're putting all your eggs in that basket and willing to give it a shot. I don't think you can win at anything unless you really commit to it. Because if I kept thinking that there's always a plan B, I may not have done it. I think you need that, what they call the burning platform. I think you need to know that maybe there isn't a way out, that I can't go through that door behind me. I've got to keep moving forward to the horizon. The door behind me is closed. So I've got to make a success of what's happening now. So the burning platform allows me to keep moving forward and going all in and committing to that new role. Now, if it didn't succeed further down the track, I would have said, you know what? I gave my best shot. I did everything I could to make it a success. I have no fear or shame or embarrassment about it. So I gave my best shot. But if I didn't give my best shot, I'd be thinking for the rest of my life, what if, could have done better? Could I have committed more? Could I have spent more time at it? I would not have known. So by committing to it and succeeding or failing, I know I gave my best shot regardless.
I like that. And I like how you're bringing in fear, because so many people want to appear as if everything was smooth sailing, that nothing ever, grappled with their journey, and want to, present themselves as that lone wolf who seemingly did everything by themselves and became self-made. And I'm not hearing any of that, because you're paying homage to the people that actually helped you elevate. Like, you introduced us to the creative director in the advertising space, and then now this friend who then introduced you to this particular thing. But
But
so
also,
many people, yeah.
but just to interrupt you there for a second, but also it was the clients I had when I moved into the training and management consulting sphere that were willing to give me a shot. They were willing to gamble and say, well, sure, let's give it a try. So as you say, there's always a lot of people who open doors for me. He gave me opportunities. Someone once said you have to be ready for your luck, and when luck knocks on your door, you've got to be able to open that door. So people gave me those opportunities, which I'm grateful for. So it's, a lot of actors talk about being an overnight success, but then they say being an overnight success took them 20 years. So it's the same kind of thing. Just in a quick chat, it looks easy and lots of luck, but there was blood, sweat, and tears along the way. There are moments of self-doubt. There are moments of fear. There's moments of, wow, is this going to work? But you keep going.
There's also one other thing that would have happened while you were in this advertising career. It would have involved extensive traveling. like you mentioned before, when there was times that you were obviously in London and working in different countries and having to meet and experience so many different people and things. How did these sort of experiences maybe shape your professional outlook and approach? Because some of us, since COVID, have never been on a plane, and we're
Right.
just not being exposed to the amount of growth that is actually happening in the world right now.
Well, gee, look, I wish I could have had Zoom calls back then rather than all the travel, I've got to say, because the travel's quite painful. It sounded sort of glamorous and exciting, but it's another hotel or motel, early starts, early meetings. You're on a plane somewhere else to have another meeting. So you live your life in between airports, taxis, and hotels and meetings. But I think what I learned from that is just tolerance and acceptance. I was lucky enough to go to lots of different countries, meet different people from different cultures, and just I suppose, realize that we're all the same, and it was just to me it was just fun. It was just so exciting to have these experiences. But there's a lot of boredom that goes with all that travel as well. You're even when we're filming commercials overseas back then, filming a commercial is an incredibly boring thing to do. You'll spend 2 hours sitting around, then you'll do about 2 or 3 minutes of filming, another 3 hours of sitting around watching what's going on, change the lighting. It's a dull and boring, and you end up with 30 seconds of something that's amazing, but you're there for 2 or 3 days filming this thing. So yeah, it was a mixture of a whole lot of things, but the travel was fun. The hotels were always interesting, different countries, different cultures, but always glad to get home. And I was quite happy to do a lot less travel over the last few years as well. I think I had far too many frequent flyer miles, which showed you what sort of an unbalanced life I was living. I think too many miles on a plane.
Speaking of balance, I mean, obviously, you did say post the advertising era, you'd sort of obviously advanced in age and things of that nature. So having that professional and personal life balance is very crucial for, obviously maybe a young family or somebody who's now in that sort of stage in life. How did you manage this balance while, like you say, texting through airports and just really trying to figure out yourself?
Well, good question. I think one of the things that was really helpful was that I worked from home, and I've been working from home since the mid 1980s, believe it or not. And you mentioned one of the books I wrote called Inside Out. I wrote another book called Working from Home, which was the first book in Australia about running a home-based business. So I've been working from home since the mid 80s when it was very unfashionable. People felt sorry for me because I worked from home. Oh, poor Peter doesn't have an office. He's got to work from home. So it was really strange times back then. But because I was working from home, back then I had two small children and my wife was working as well. So I'd be home when the kids would come home from school. I can help them with their homework. Then I'd go back to my home office and continue working. So I blended work and home together quite nicely. I think the challenge for me was, or for anyone working from home, is not working too much because it's so easy to open that laptop or go into your room and work and continue working. So you need motivation to work, but you also, I think, need motivation to not work as well and sit down with your family, watch a movie, go for a walk, those sort of things. So you've got to have that real balance. But yeah, I think that's really what helped me, that I could work from home. So I was available to my family in between all those trips to the airports, hotels, taxis, and what have you. I'd always come back home and I'd be working there. So I wasn't an absentee parent for too long if I could help it.
Absolutely, I quite like that. I mean, you were working from home before it was cool. You even wrote a book about it, so it's just one of those things. But
Why
absolutely. No, there's a lot of talk about pivoting or changing career, especially, post the pandemic, and so many people are fully qualified for a world that no longer exists, and they are quite concerned about their future prospects based on artificial intelligence and everything else that's designed to take their job away. Now, for those that are maybe considering a major career shift, what sort of practical steps would you recommend to ensure a smooth transition? I mean, because learning from you, you literally had to, go and immerse yourself and be humble enough to accept a pay cut. So many people wouldn't be able to do that.
And start all over again as
Yes.
well. Just restart. So a couple of things about about AI as well. I'm really interested in. I'm a bit of a techie person as well, so I'm interested in AI, and I've used a lot of ChatGPT over the last couple of years, even planning my training sessions. But what I've been reading about, three or four careers in particular are at risk with AI. They are HR careers, accounting, and law, because anything that can be learnt by a computer. So if you give a computer all the information about what accounting is about, if you give a computer all the information on what human resources legislation is like, and et cetera, a computer will learn that through neural networks and machine learning. So if a computer can learn what you do, your job is at risk from AI. It's much easier for AI. There's been lots of interesting research about AI in courts and making judgments. They found that AI computing can make equally good judgments on law cases as a real human judge, because the computers have learned all the case law and can make judgments. So, but to answer your questions about that, I think there's a thing called, the word I like is employability. Employability is your ability to find jobs regardless of your particular skill set. So it's your ability to learn quickly, to be flexible, to adapt, to manage change, all sorts of things like that. But I think you've got to be willing, to change your career, I think you need to plan for it. And I think you really need to think, where is your passion? What interests you? And don't look for job ads. Don't go to Seek, or don't look for various job ads online, etc. I think speak to businesses directly. If you're curious about a new career in a different organization, go knock on a few doors, call people up, and just say, can we have a meeting? Do you have time for a coffee? Love to pick your brains about what you do in your job. How can I do what you're doing? What do I need to learn? And you'll find people will be quite open to that and quite willing to help you. But you don't say when you're looking for a job, you just say, I'm really looking to change careers and I'm interested in this particular area. It could be marketing, stockbroking, it could be finance, insurance. Speak to those companies, find out what they do, find someone who is a good lead, make that initial cold call, and build a connection and start that way. And you'll be amazed, because even if that company doesn't hire you further down the track, someone, once they've got your details, they may be able to pass your details on to someone else who says, gee, this guy Peter came in a couple of weeks ago. He's looking for a job, looking for a career. Do you want to meet him? I'll send you my details. I'll send you his details. So your details can be passed on. But there's a huge invisible job network, which is the informal job network. So what you see with Seek and the other sites that are advertising jobs, that's the tip of the iceberg. The real job market is really below the surface, where it's personal contacts, people that you know, and your willingness to pick up the phone, make a call. I saw an interview a number of years ago with the late, great Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, and someone said to him, what's the secret of your success, Steve? And it's quite funny what he said. He said, the secret of my success is I'm willing to pick up the phone and call people. And I think it's a good skill to develop. I was a serial cold caller. I had no fear about ringing anyone up, whoever they were, wherever they worked. I would just call them up and introduce myself and see what I could squeeze out of that relationship. A lot of people have this massive fear of being rejected in a cold call. Sure, you might be rejected, but what if it works? So I would say I would have 9 dud cold calls, but one really good one. And that really good one could be worth thousands of dollars of income to me further down the track. So, do 100 calls, you'll get 10 good ones. If each call is worth, I don't know, $5,000 in income to you, you've picked up $50,000 in income because you made a few phone calls. You had the guts to do that, and people appreciate it. So cold calling, whether it's email, through social media, whatever else you want to do, still works even in 2025.
Absolutely. I love that piece of advice because it's through talking to other people that have access to information that you probably, were blindsided to, that obviously you can elevate. And case in point, you literally spoke to the management consultant in America and they literally showed you a whole different path and direction that then changed the course of your life. So, it's that picking up the phone and being willing to immerse yourself into whatever next opportunity is and things of that nature. Now, Peter, I'm having fun with this and I'm learning so much just from your journey and your life story because it's leaving so many clues. And as they say, success does leave clues. But if you would look back to that young man walking on St. Kilda Road and then turning into that advertising agency. So let's reverse the roles a little bit. And you happen to be the creative director. What would you have said to that young man who's pounding the pavement?
Well, I was 23 then. I was 23 years old when I knocked on that door. Um, Look, I think it was quite surprised. I think he thought it was reasonably audacious that someone walked in like that. I think he found it just weird and unusual. So I think he was a little bit taken aback by this person talking about just turning up wanting a job there. But I think he was intrigued enough, and I think I showed a level of enthusiasm or interest or motivation that he'd want to keep talking to me. So I spent an hour with him on that first meeting, and he really wanted to understand what I was looking for, what I wanted to do. So it was just lucky he happened to be there at that day. I was lucky that he had time to talk to me, but I think he was probably intrigued and fascinated by this 23-year-old who knew nothing about the business but wanted to work there. A lot of people want to get into advertising, for example, because they've got this passion for it and they love ads, they love the creativity, they love the whole idea of working in that industry. But I had none of that. I literally, advertising only occurred to me as a career 3 minutes before I walked through that front door. So, but again, it was a career that sustained me in 2 different countries for 17 years. But I learned a lot and became very good at it, I suppose, and it sustained me for 17 years. So quite funny, but it's weird how from this sort of nothing moment of walking through a door, everything changed. But I think he was probably intrigued, to answer your question, about this 23-year-old who knew nothing about the business but wanted to work there.
Absolutely. Well, yes, you never know until you ask, right? So that's pretty much how it is. It would have been a no for the rest of your life, and you wouldn't have known how your life would have turned around had you not walked into that particular office. Now, obviously, once people watch this, they are going to say maybe have a few questions and maybe want to connect with you moving forward, and they might have personal stuff they might want to ask you and verify around. Are you open to people connecting with you, or are you strictly in retirement?
No, I'm open. I'm still on LinkedIn. If people want to look me up, which is how we met as well, didn't we? So
Absolutely.
I'm still on LinkedIn, and sure, and people can contact me through LinkedIn, or I can give you my happy to put my email address out there, or if people want, I don't know how it works, whether people contact you for that, or if you want me to give you my email address now. What's your suggestion?
That's fine. I will put those details in the show notes. I just wanted to make sure that there was
I'm more
that.
than Yeah, happy to receive questions or comments from your audience. Happy to do that.
Absolutely. And also the books that you've written, where can people grab a copy or have a look at what you've put together?
They were written a long time ago. They may still be in libraries. There's one's called Inside Out, Life's Great Possibilities. I can put that, can I put that in the chat?
Absolutely, absolutely. I will also put the links
Oh,
to
okay.
those books as we progress. Now, Peter, I know we could go on and on, but you literally had to come out of retirement and have this conversation with me.
I have time in retirement.
All right, now that you're retired, how are you continuing to maybe channel your passion, maybe the curiosity that always has brought you to different places, or what sort of projects are you now pursuing?
Well, I mentioned earlier, I still want to do a bit of volunteer work and help people with careers or jobs or those sort of things, or people changing careers. So a bit of mentoring and coaching on a volunteer level. Um, I'm still doing a lot of reading. As I'm interested in things like AI, so I'm doing a lot of my own private research in that area. I've returned to learning Italian, which I started to do, probably 15 years ago. So I'm diving back into learning another language. I speak Hungarian already, but I want to learn Italian as well. So I want to keep my brain active. So I'm a curious person. I don't want to be one of these quiet, wilting retirees who are just staring at the TV all day. So I want to remain active. I want to remain curious. I want to remain interested in things. So I want to still connect with people, share knowledge or interest or passion with others, but still invest time to make me a better version of me. And even at the age of 70, you're never too old to do that.
Absolutely. Well, I really, really appreciate you for taking the time with us today and just really showcasing to us what it's like, because I viscerally believe in life. We're here to live, to learn, and to contribute. Okay. So in order for us to live the best life, which obviously you would have, you needed to learn how to, be, do, and have all of that and the resources that you need in order for that to happen. And once that is all said and done, you're at the top of the building, you just send the elevator down, which is what you have done for us here today, taking the time to just walk us through what it was like, being Peter, and what it's now like, being in retirement, and what it is that you're working on. So I can't thank you enough for the time that you spent with me today, Peter.
Well, thank you again, Prosper. And I really appreciated the opportunity, and hopefully this may lead to some more conversations further down the track. But thank you very much again for your time too.
Absolutely. Now, for those that are watching right now, I also appreciate the time that you've spent on this show today. And it was quite a pleasure of exploring the dynamic career of Peter Schmideg, uncovering valuable lessons on adaptability, courage, and just lifelong learning that comes along with having a happier existence. Now, if you found this conversation as inspiring as I did, don't miss our next episode where we're going to dive into ideas designed to enhance your happiness and well-being. And one thing that I might also encourage you to do is, if you think what we shared in this conversation is helpful, why don't you share it with somebody who's probably, struggling with a career shift, or is just struggling with knowing what their next possible step is, or is afraid of actually letting go and go into retirement, because so many people are holding on and white knuckling to things that no longer are serving them. And as you have seen with Peter, it's never too late to reinvent yourself and to actually be humble enough to accept the situations as they unfold. And if somebody shared this with you, you basically know what to do. Just subscribe to this episode and to this channel so that you do not miss out on intriguing conversations like this. Until next time, bye for now.